Hi everyone. So today is the final session for business communication, which is Unit 3. My name's Shazia Khan, and we've completed all 4 learning outcomes, and now we'll be doing the assignment discussion session. Before I go into doing the assignment discussion session, I want to just give you a summary of what we've done in the last 4 learning outcomes. So the first learning outcome, we looked at understanding the principle of effective internal and external communication. We looked at what internal communication was and how it's used within the workplace. We also looked at the importance of internal communication. So literally to keep people informed about things that are going on and keep people engaged and empowered. We also looked at why internal communication is so important within a workplace. So things like improving productivity and output, keeps people happy and looks at support. We also looked at elements of external communication, and that's between a company and external entities. So it could be things like, customers, suppliers, investors, the general public. We looked at how external communication is becoming a big part of any sort of organization. We then went on to look at why it's so important. The fact that, people can actually, it promotes the company's image, enhances its reputation and builds, your relationships with people and stakeholders outside. We then went on to look at internal communication and external communication together and how it helps within an organization. We then went on to look at understanding organizational barriers, things like language barriers, quite important, cultural barriers, things like, physical barriers. Also we looked at things like psychological barriers and also technological barriers and ways in improving things like organizational barriers as well. We then looked at the different ways of overcoming these barriers within an organization and creating like a positive response within an organization rather than creating all sorts of negativity. We then went on to learning outcome 2, which was to look at communication, complex business information effectively, both orally and written. We looked at how effective communication enhances oral and written skills. We looked at the importance of effective communication within any sort of relationship. We looked at oral communication in formal situations and why it's so important and used examples. We also looked at written communication of complex information, and we looked at strategies for written communication, why it's so important. We then went on to look at managing a question and answer session as well, how it's important to, be prepared. Also, active listening is one strategy for communication. Effective question and answer session, clarity, confidence, and flexibility. We then looked at how effective communication, written and oral, is really important within an organization. And looked at some of the advantages and disadvantages of written and oral communication. We then went on to learning outcome 3, which is to look at understanding how organizations communicate with their customers and why that's so important that organizations are able to communicate sufficiently with their customers. We looked at key factors for communicating with customers. And we then went on to look at things like, their behavior, communication preferences. We went to look at understanding customers' needs and preferences. Things like conducting market research, analysing customer data and, feedback surveys, focus groups to try and identify our target audience as well. We then went on to look at how important it is to have consistency when messaging for building brand recognition among consumers, and also like maintaining this consistent tone, style, and branding. We then went on to look at in learning outcome 3, personalization and customization, why that's important for customers, but also building on their preferences and their behaviors. So looked at customer data, segmentation, looked at the needs and interests of consumers, and how this can build customer satisfaction, customer engagement, and loyalty. We then went on to look at timelessness and responsiveness, and why these are critical and effective for effective communication with customers. We also looked at enhancing trust and credibility with customers. We then went on to look at clarity and transparency in learning outcome 3, and why that's so important, that organizations maintain that messages they are sending out to individuals are clear, they're concise, they're also easy to read, so no use of technical jargon or slang or any sort of ambiguities. And we also looked at how transparency is about providing honest and accurate information to its customers about any sort of products, any pricing, any servicing. We then went on to look at empathy and emotional intelligence, and why that plays a crucial role within effective communication. Things like training their employees to empathize with customers' emotions and perspectives, showing understanding and compassion in their interactions. And by doing this, you build a company's rapport and also resolve conflicts and create a positive experience for them. We then went on to look at compliance with regulations, and why it's so important to comply with legal and regulatory requirements. So following policies, following laws, adhering to any sort of regulations, any sort of regulations that govern consumer rights, data protection, advertising, marketing practices, and, upholding, the organization's reputation by following these legal and regulatory requirements. We then looked at systems for communication with customers. So there were various systems that are used, and the one we referred to was the CRM software, which was customer relationship management, and email communication, social media management tools, referring to customers' support, any sort of ticketing system, feedback system. So we looked at this and why it was so important in communication. We then went on to look at the CRM system, which is the customer relationship management system, and how that works, and how it manages and analyzes customer interactions and data throughout customer life cycle, and why it's so important within any sort of organization. We then went on to look at email communication platforms and why they are widely used by organizations to respond to customers' feedback or email any sort of marketing or, communicating with individuals. Another big one within Learning Outcome 3 is social media, and why that is used in both nationally and internationally. And, it creates this content for customers to inquire and monitor the brand. We looked at customer support systems, help desk software, ticketing systems, and why it's important to provide timely responses to customers' inquiries. Feedback and survey platforms was the next one, where we look at collecting feedback and looking at their satisfaction and experiences. And by doing this, we can identify any areas of improvement. We looked at marketing automation software to automate any sort of marketing processes, campaigns, email, social media. And that was learning outcome 3. We then went on to look at the final learning outcome, which was learning outcome 4, which was can review your personal communication skills. So we looked at effective personal skills are indispensable. We looked at interpersonal skills, why they were so important in communication. We then went on to look at verbal communication and why it's so important, such as, you know, the tone of your language, the tone you speak in, your body language, you know, and why it's so important within an organization. So it can identify your strengths and your areas for improvement. We then went on to written communication and how it's important that the written communication is conveyed effectively, and the communication is clear, coherent, and grammar proficiency, you know, so for when the person reviewing it is able to understand what you've wrote. We then went on to listening skills and how they are fundamental to effective communications. And we looked at effective listening requires things like empathy, patience, and ability to provide appropriate responses. We also looked at understanding messages and feedback from peers or mentors, coupled with our personal reflection as well. We then went on to look at reading skills and what that encompasses, so the ability to analyze, interpret information effectively. Strong reading skills are essential for academic success. We then went on to reviewing why it's your personal reading skills as well, that you have the ability to comprehend and critically think about what you're saying, but also the ability to extract a meaning from a written text. We also looked at feedback from educators, personal reflection. We then went on to producing a plan to improve communication skills. And this was based around the goal setting. And we looked at setting the SMART goals, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And we went through the importance of setting these and how it's imperative for improving any sort of communication skills. And we also looked at how this would help in regards to your own experience. And, you know, we looked at examples of SMART goals. So it may be for you to attend workshops or practice active listening, reading your, you know, setting aside a number of pages. So it's your own SMART goals to identify what you want to improve. We then went on to strategies, identifying specific strategies and techniques to achieve communication skills improvement goals, and how individuals explore various strategies to tailor their own communication skills. We then went on to looking at resources, which is quite an important thing in regards to utilising resources and tools and how they can support your journey to improve communication skills, things like, you know, online courses, workshops, communication apps. We then went on to timeline. Developing a realistic timeline is essential for implementing a plan and achieving communication skill improvement goals. So, you know, the timeline will have things like your long-term, your short-term objectives, and allowing for any sort of gradual improvement, any sort of setting any sort of deadlines, any milestones, and making sure that, you know, you have adhered to that, you know, and identified that, you know, you are able to follow these deadlines. And then we went on to identifying how, finally, how personal communication skills and learning outcome is a success of everyone's life. You know, by collaborating and conveying ideas effectively, you are communicating these to, you know, the individual, and by reviewing and refining verbal communication, written communication, and listening skills and reading skills, how individuals can enhance their ability to communicate with clarity, empathy, and confidence. And, you know, we looked at the SMART objectives, which is really good when trying to put in process of your own objective and your personal reflection. And we looked at, you know, the process of feedback, why it's so important in regards to areas for improvement, identifying any sort of strengths, identifying weaknesses, and identifying, you know, any sort of resources or, you know, enhancing your own communication skills and achieving your own personal and professional aspirations. So that was learning outcome 1, 2, 3, and 4 for business communication. Now we're going to go to the assignment discussion. So the aim of the unit is to facilitate the development of knowledge, skills, and understanding of communication theory and the significance of effective communication in the context of business environments. Number 1, knowledge development. The unit seeks to enhance students' understanding of various aspects of communication theory. This includes exploring fundamental concepts such as the communication process, types of communication, so verbal, non-verbal, formal, informal, channels of communication, so like we looked at, internal and external, and the role of technology in communication. Number 2, skills enhancement. Alongside theoretical knowledge, the unit aims to equip students with practical communication skills essential for success in business settings. This involves fostering abilities in areas such as verbal and written communication, active listening, and reading comprehension. Students are encouraged to develop proficiency in expressing ideas clearly, persuasively, and professionally, both orally and in writing. Number 3, understanding the importance of effective communication. And this is another key objective, is to underscore the critical role of effective communication in business. Students are guided to recognize that effective communication is fundamental to achieving organizational objectives, building strong relationships with stakeholders, fostering any sort of collaboration within the teams, and enhancing customer satisfaction. Through case studies, examples, and discussions, students gain insights into how communication impacts various aspects of business operations and performance. Assignment declaration. So there's an assignment declaration that you have to complete to identify that the work that you are doing is your own work, and that you must that you have submitted the work and there's no form of plagiarism, and you confirm this that your work is your own work. So this needs to be done, and this is normally available when you do your assignment and when you submit your assignment. So, and this is also available on this link. So this needs to be done when submitting your assignment. So the assignment scenario. So brief overview of the internship with Verta, a UK-based electric vehicle manufacturer. Description of Verta's growth options, selling more electrical vehicle overseas and introducing a new model, the Smart Hopper. You need to focus on improving with customers due to recent issues with customer complaints. So task 1, make sure it's clear that you've got headings when you are doing each task, and it's clear that you are doing each element of the task. Task 1, so presentation to the board of directors. Overview of task 1, preparing and delivering a 10-minute presentation to the board of directors. In the presentation, your explanation of the importance of effective communication in business expansion. You look at instructions to research and identify communication channels used internally and externally by organizations and barriers to communication for overseas expansion. And you need guidance in the presentation on creating a structured presentation with clear introduction, main points, and conclusion. So task 1 for the extension activities to gain a merit. Here, step 4, you need to manage a question and answer session to demonstrate subject knowledge and communication skills. And we did this in the learning outcomes, so you'll be able to look at that. It was learning outcome 3, I think, yeah. Prepare responses to anticipated questions and actively engage with the audience. Step 5, document the question and answer session. So you need to make it clear that you've got it all in documentation, including the questions asked, responses given, and reflection on areas for improvement. Step 6, you need to provide evidence of managing the session effectively. So setting as time limits and ensuring all participants are included. Task 2 is to be a formal business report. So to overview of task 2 is to prepare a formal business report on communications in regards to customer communications. You need explanation of the purpose is to analyze key factors for communicating with customers and evaluate communication systems in other organisations. So instructions to research and analyse communication factors and used by at least 2 organisations. So you need to pick the 2 organisations. Again, task 2, step by step. Step 1, you need to research and analyse key factors organisations need to consider when communicating with customers. You need to explore factors such as courtesy, clarity, and responsiveness. Step 2, you need to investigate communication systems used by at least 2 organisations to interact with customers. Examine channels such as websites, emails, and customer feedback mechanisms. So you need to choose 2 organisations yourself, whichever organisations you want to choose. Step 3, compile findings into a formal business report with clear sections, including introduction, analysis, and recommendation. Task 2, for merit grade. So this is the extension activity. Step 4, propose and justify solutions to customer complaints listed in the scenario. Provide actionable recommendations supported by evidence and rationale. Step 5, add a further section proposing solutions to customer complaints from vetoes, customers, and justify solutions and provide actionable recommendations for implementation. Task 3, reviewing communication skills. The overview of task 3. So reviewing communication skills demonstrated in task 1 and 2. You need to explanation of the purpose to review verbal communication, written communication, reading and listening skills, instructions to obtain feedback and reflect on your personal communication skills. Task 3, steps by step. So step 1, obtain feedback on verbal and written communication skill demonstrated in the presentation and report tasks. Seek feedback from your peers, tutors, or mentors. Step 2, reflect on your personal communication skills, identify strengths and areas for improvement. Consider aspects such as clarity, professionalism, and engagement. And step 3, produce a set of notes outlining feedback received and reflections on personal communication skills. The extension activity for task 3 is step 4, produce a plan to improve personal communication skills, incorporate the SMART targets and opportunities for monitoring and review. Identify specific areas for improvement and outline actionable steps. Step 4, demonstrate how the plan aligns with personal development, objectives and professional growth aspirations, and reflect on the potential impact of improved communication skills on future career prospects. In conclusion, summary of key points covered in the assignment tasks, emphasize on the importance of the effective communication skills in business context, and encouragement for continuous improvement and development of communication skills. Some of the references that have been used here that you can refer to. And also, refer to ebooks and journals on Moodle. Assignment submission is after 2 weeks of completion of the unit. And if you are using UK Varsity slides, then the referencing will be as below: MDT 2002, Bibliography Multidisciplinary Learning Outcome, slide 2 to 10, UK Varsity, published on 15th of January 2023. And the submission of the assignment to be done on learnerwork at ukvarsity.co.uk, and any questions on learnerwork at ukvarsity.co.uk. So this is a brief PowerPoint slides on your assignment brief. Okay, so now I'm just going to go on to looking at the actual brief itself. So we'll go on to that. So the unit, as we said, is business communication assignment, and it's level 3 diploma in business. So this is the scenario. So make sure that you are doing everything in order. Make sure that you're using Harvard referencing, and make sure that you, within each task, what you are doing, you are putting that as a heading, okay? So let's carry on with this. So the assignment scenario. So before progressing on to university to study, so this is the scenario. Before progressing on to university to study international business, you have managed a secure 4-month management internship with a prestigious company in Oxford, England. Vito is relatively small, UK-based electric vehicle manufacturer focusing on making small, affordable electric cars and commercial vehicles. It has run the internship scheme for several years, offering just 10 places a year. Vito is an increasingly successful brand, and the company has 2 options for growth. Firstly, there's the intention to sell more electric vehicle overseas. Secondly, Vito wants to introduce a new model of smaller electric car, the Smart Hopper. Your responses to the task should be based on the real businesses that you are familiar with. The businesses need to be small, medium enterprise business, SMEs, although some sole traders may not be able to provide sufficient information required for the tasks. You have been asked to work with customer service team, and the head of customer service, Jane Peterson, is keen for you to help the team look at improving communications with customers. There have been some issues lately with the rise in customer complaints regarding poor communication. The problems raised include overuse of technical information in communications with customers, customers receiving emails from sales team and then from customer services with conflicting information, a lack of information regarding car delivery times and dates, a lack of opportunity to speak to sales team directly. So the team is also reviewing the company's communication strategy in light of the organization's growth plans. The team will provide the implications for communications with customers if Vito expands into overseas markets. Task 1. So please make sure this is a heading that is task 1. Jane has mentioned a big electric vehicle exhibition due to take place in Germany, and Vito will have to stand at the exhibition. Jane has asked you to prepare and deliver a 10-minute presentation to the board of directors on both the communication channels and the barriers to communication the organization might face when expanding its operation into Europe. The board of directors will expect a professional presentation with accompanying notes which board members can use as reference. So in your presentation, you must firstly explain channels of communication used internally and B, externally in organizations. So if you do a PowerPoint presentations, you need to put that into it. You need to secondly, part B, explain barriers to communication for organizations looking to expand overseas, and you should refer to at least 2 organizations with which you are familiar. C, you need to use technology and other appropriate aids to present complex business information effectively. So you need to make sure it's clear that you've done each part of task 1. To get a merit in this, you need to achieve a merit. You should also do the following. You should A, manage a question and answer session to demonstrate subject knowledge and communication skill. The evidence for this should include a record of questions asked of you and questions you may have asked the audience. It should include a summary of the responses you gave to the question you were asked. And it should also include evidence demonstrating how you managed the question and answer session. This could be a video recording of the session, notes recording how you planned the question and answer session, for example, setting time limits, how to ensure all participants are included in the question and answer session. And this covers learning outcomes and assessment criteria, learning outcome AC 1.1, 1.2 and learning outcome 2, AC 2.1 and 2M1. So that's all for learning outcome. That's for task 1. So make sure it's clear that you're doing everything, presentation and the question and answer session, and make it clear that it's done with headings and things. Task 2, one of the directors is concerned about the customer complaints listed above regarding poor communication, has asked for information related to the systems the organisations use to communicate with customers. Jane thinks this would be a task you could undertake during your remaining time in customer services team. She asks you to investigate at least 2 businesses to see how they communicate with their customers. She hopes you will be able to help Vito make improvements following the issues raised by the customers. So to do this, you must prepare a formal business report as a guide. The report should be approximately 2 sides of A4 sheets in length, and it should include, so number A of task 2 should include an analysis of the key factors organizations need to consider when communicating with customers, and it should be, which is the second part, so have them as headings, an analysis of systems for communication for customers in organizations. At least 2 different organizations need to be considered, and that's up to you which 2 organizations you consider. Now, the extension activity, and to gain a merit for this, you need to add a further section in your report to propose and justify any sort of solutions to complaints listed above from customers at Vito. And the learning outcomes and assessment criteria on this one is task 2 is learning outcome 3, AC 3.1, 3.2, and 3M1. Now we go on to task 3. Make sure you're making it clear that you're doing each task, but also what you're doing within each task, that you've completed each learning outcome. Task 3, the board is impressed with your presentation and your report on customer communications, but you are aware there are ways in which you can develop your communication skills. You decide to review your own skills demonstrated in task 1 and 2 for verbal communication, written communication, reading, listening. To do so, you must produce a set of notes you have. So obtain feedback on your communication skills, A. B, you need to complete a personal reflection on your communication skills. And like we said, reflect on what your own personal experiences, your own personal views, your own personal communication skills and feedback on that. So you need to do that in the first task 3, them A and B, and make it clear that you've done each. And for the extension activity, to achieve a distinction, you need to produce a plan to improve your personal communication skills. You must include the SMART targets we looked at and opportunities for monitoring and reviewing the plan. So you need to make sure you are looking at your SMART targets for your personal communication skills. That will cover learning outcomes and assessment criteria, learning outcome 4, AC 4.1, learning outcome 2, and learning outcome 4, AC 4D1. Now you need to make sure that you are following the SMART goals to get that distinction, because that's the extension activity. Now it's up to you whether you do the extension activity or not. Make sure you make it clear that which activities, which tasks you've done. So you have to do task 1, 2, 3, and if you are doing the extension activities, make it clear that you've done the extension activities. Make sure you are using Harvard referencing throughout as well. And these are some guidelines for the assessors here. So what the learner need to provide in the question and answer session, it gives you a clear outline of what you need to do. Make sure you are, again, using the assignment brief, but also referring to this assignment discussion that we've looked on Moodle. Everything is on Moodle. Additional reading is on Moodle. Any sort of resources you need to use around is on Moodle as well. Please make sure you stick to the brief as it is. Task 1, 2, and 3. Make sure you have your name on the front cover, your the unit details, also your institution number. Make sure if you want a contents page to identify that you're doing each, and in your PowerPoint slides, make it clear that you are covering each element as well. And also make sure that you are using Harvard referencing throughout your assignment. And if you Make sure you are referencing using sources, as we explained in the PowerPoint slides, and also make sure you choose 2 companies that you can get information from rather than using sole traders, because it will be difficult to get information on that. Referencing, make sure you are also make sure you sign the declaration to say it's your work. Also, make sure once it's done, you submit it via UK Varsity at the email address learn@ukvarsity.co.uk, which we mentioned there. So it was the learner work at ukvarsity.co.uk. So any questions, once you've completed, please make sure you submit to learner work. And if you've got any questions, please email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Thank you for attending today's session, and good luck with getting on with your assignment. Thank you.